Secret cheap repair hacks. Fix everything for pennies. A home repair emergency is rarely just a drip or a crack. It is a gut-wrenching moment of panic where a single drop of water from the ceiling feels like a ticking clock counting down to financial ruin. The groan of a floorboard beneath your feet sounds like the death rattle of your savings, and the spark that flies from a faulty socket is a terrifying omen of the exorbitant bill a professional will surely deliver. Your heart stops, trapped in the suffocating belief that your sanctuary is crumbling, and the only way to save it is to surrender a month's salary to a brigade of strangers whose arrival you dread more than the damage itself. But what if I told you that the power to silence the groans, to stop the leaks, and to make your home shine again resided not in their toolboxes, but in your own kitchen drawer, and that the most transformative changes begin not with a phone call, but with a single ingenious trick that will rewrite your entire understanding of home maintenance forever? Today, we will not merely discuss repairs. We will embark on a riveting journey through your own home, where every room, every corner, and every broken object becomes a puzzle, and you, the brilliant solver. Because the most monumental transformations begin not with a summoned crew, but with a simple yet brilliant technique that will change your perception of household chores forever. We will start with every homeowner's primary adversary, that gaping hole in the wall left behind by the previous tenant, or by your own ambitious but misguided attempt to hang a picture missing the dowel entirely. You have likely assumed that without a bag of spackling paste and a whole set of spatulas, the situation is hopeless. But in reality, it is far simpler and bolder. Take the most ordinary bar of dry household soap, the one gathering dust on your bathroom shelf, and firmly press it into the hole as if you are corking a bottle of treasure. The soap will fill the void, creating a solid plug. And if you then lightly sand the surface with sandpaper, the damaged spot will become virtually invisible, especially if the wall is covered with wallpaper or a layer of paint. This trick works not only with soap. Ordinary white toothpaste, the kind left in the tube with its final grams, is also a wonderful temporary sealant for small cracks and chips. It dries quickly, turns white, and blends perfectly with the background. And for truly desperate cases, when the hole resembles a crater more than a simple puncture, there exists a method that will make you smile. Take a piece of dry toilet paper, crumple it into a dense ball, and pack it tightly into the opening. Then apply a thin layer of PVA glue on top, as if you are creating a reinforced composite from whatever is at hand. When the glue dries, you will have an astonishingly strong and smooth surface, ready for the final finish. This is not magic. It is knowledge that transforms every household disaster into an opportunity to demonstrate ingenuity and save a fortune that can be spent on something truly important, not on a bucket of spackling paste you will use only once in your lifetime. Now let us descend a little lower, to the floor. That very one which treacherously creaks under your feet, betraying your every movement to every guest, or sags in places as if preparing to collapse into the basement. We all dream of a level, solid floor, but the idea that its repair requires demolishing the old covering and pouring a screed is frightening in its complexity and cost. Yet reality is much kinder and more generous. If you have a wooden floor, the creaking is often caused by boards having pulled away from the joists, and here you do not need to pull them out. Simply locate the spot where the creak is loudest, drill a small hole at an angle there, and drive in a short wooden dowel coated with carpenter's glue. And this simple gesture will forever eliminate the annoying sound, reuniting the board with its foundation. For laminate that has begun to separate at the joints, ordinary furniture wax is a salvation. It must be melted in a water bath and carefully rubbed into the gap with a brush, and when the wax solidifies, it will not only conceal the damage, but also create a strong waterproof joint. And if you want to completely renew the floor without going broke, pay attention to plywood. Sheets 6 mm thick, laid over the old uneven covering, will create a perfectly level base for any new flooring, be it linoleum, carpet, or even laminate. And the cost of such a solution is many times lower than a full screed replacement. You simply transform the old ailing floor into a solid foundation for the new, and this feeling of creating reliability beneath your own feet with your own hands is priceless. This approach not only saves money, it gives you an incredible sense of control over your space. You cease to be a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your own comfort. let us raise our eyes to the ceiling, to that very one which cracks like spring ice in new buildings and frightens you with the prospect of enormous expenses for suspended structures or multi-level drywall. In most cases, the problem is not the ceiling itself, but the joint between the wall and the ceiling slab, where small cracks appear due to the building's settling. And here the simplest yet most ingenious life hack comes to the rescue: the ceiling trim. It performs not only a decorative function, concealing the unsightly joint, but also serves as a kind of expansion joint, allowing the structure to move slightly without new cracks forming. But the main thing is how to install it correctly. There is no need to try gluing it with construction adhesive if the wall is uneven. First, prepare the base, spackle and prime the section of the wall where the trim will be attached, and before installation, lay the trim on the floor and sand its inner side with sandpaper to improve the glue's adhesion. Use a special adhesive for ceiling trims, apply it not in a solid strip but in dots, and press the trim to the ceiling, not the wall, because the ceiling is, as a rule, a more even surface, and only then carefully adjust its position relative to the wall. This simple technique will not only conceal all defects, but also visually raise the ceiling, making the room more spacious and brighter. And you will understand that sometimes the most grandiose transformation is achieved not by complex technologies, but by the ability to see and use simple things wisely. Now, let us go to the most vulnerable place in the house, the bathroom, where a real catastrophe can strike at any moment. A tap may leak, a siphon may clog, or water may relentlessly drip from the toilet tank. Calling a plumber on a weekend can cost a small fortune, but in reality, most of these problems can be fixed in 30 minutes and without a single specialized tool. For example, the classic leak from under a tap is almost always related to a worn rubber washer. You simply need to shut off the water, unscrew the knob or decorative cap on the valve, pull out the old cartridge or stem, replace the washer with a new one, which costs mere pennies, and reassemble everything. If water is leaking from the toilet tank, the problem is most likely in the float valve or the diaphragm of the flush mechanism. Sometimes it is enough to simply bend the metal tab of the float to make it shut off the water supply earlier, or to replace the diaphragm, which is sold separately in any hardware store. And to unclog a sink, there is no need to buy expensive chemical agents that can damage the pipes. Take half a liter of vinegar, pour it down the drain, then add a cup of baking soda, and watch as a vigorous chemical reaction begins, generating a huge amount of foam. This foam will dissolve fatty deposits, and after 15 minutes, when the reaction ends, simply pour 2 liters of boiling water down the drain, and your plumbing will work like new. This feeling, when you, kneeling before the sink, restore order and silence to your home with your own hands, is priceless. You cease to fear every dripping tap, because you know you have the knowledge and strength to deal with it. Let us not forget the main guardians of your home, the doors and windows, which in winter turn into sources of drafts, and in summer into breeding grounds for annoying mosquitoes. Insulating windows does not require buying expensive double-glazed units or calling installers to fit new glass units. For wooden frames, the ideal solution is self-adhesive sealing tape made of foam rubber or expanded polyethylene. It simply needs to be glued around the perimeter of the frame where it meets the sash, and this will instantly seal all gaps. And if you have plastic windows that have started to draft, the problem is often worn rubber seals. They can be easily replaced by buying new sealant from a store, carefully removing the old one, and inserting the new one in its place like a puzzle. For particularly harsh winters, there is an old tried and true grandfather's method. Cut a sheet of clear polyethylene film to the size of the window, stretch it over the frame, and secure it around the perimeter with double-sided tape. Then carefully heat the film with a hairdryer so that it tightens and becomes smooth as glass. This air pocket between the glass and the film creates an additional layer of thermal insulation that retains the warmth inside the room. As for doors, to eliminate a draft at the bottom, the simplest homemade draft stopper will do. Take an old sock, stuff it with rice or salt, and sew up the end. This soft roll placed by the door will block the flow of cold air and add a touch of coziness and care to the interior. You will understand that comfort in the home is not a privilege of the rich, but the result of attentiveness and the ability to use what you already have. And finally, let us talk about what surrounds us every day. The furniture that creaks, wobbles, or has lost its shine. Throwing away an old chair or chest of drawers is easy, but it is much more interesting and useful to give it a second life. Creaking wooden chairs are almost always loose joints. To strengthen them, you do not need to be a carpenter. Simply take ordinary mustard, yes, the very one from the jar in your kitchen, apply it to the tenons and into the mortises, insert the parts into place, and leave them to dry for a day. Mustard, drying, creates a strong glue-like bond because its composition includes flour and vinegar, which have excellent adhesive properties. If the veneer has peeled off a cabinet front, do not rush to paint it entirely. You can carefully lift the detached edge, apply a drop of PVA glue underneath, and press it with a weight for several hours. Then polish the surface with wax. And if you want to completely update the appearance of your furniture, do not immediately run for a can of paint. Try the decoupage technique. Cut out a favorite pattern from a beautiful napkin or newspaper, apply a layer of PVA glue to the furniture surface, place the pattern, and cover it with several more layers of clear glue, and your old chest of drawers will be transformed into a unique work of art. This restoration process is not just a repair, it is a dialogue with the object, a creation of a story where every scratch and every repaired element speaks of your care and attention to your home. So we have walked through all the rooms, armed not with hammers and drills, but with knowledge and confidence. And you have probably noticed that there is nothing supernatural in any of these life hacks. No expensive gadgets or rare materials. There is only your desire to understand how your home is built and your willingness to spend a little time making it better. These 10 techniques are not just instructions. They are keys that unlock the door to a new dimension of your life, where you are no longer dependent on the whims of the market and service prices, where every creak and every crack is not a reason for panic, but a challenge to your intellect and ingenuity. You have already taken the most important step. You became interested, you wanted to know, and now you have everything you need to begin. Do not wait for something to break completely. Do not put it off until later. Take the simplest of these life hacks, the one closest to your current problem, and apply it today, right now. Feel how your home comes alive in your hands, how it responds to you with silence, warmth, and comfort, and you will understand that true luxury is not an expensive renovation, but the ability to see potential in the simple and to create comfort with your own hands. And this skill, believe me, is worth far more than any bill from a master, because it makes you a truly free person in your own home.